everybody. Welcome to the Law and Crime Trial Network. I'm Jesse Weber, and thanks for joining us. We are going to head over right now to Ada County, Idaho, for the trial of Doomsday cult mom Lori Vallow Daybell. Prosecutors have charged Vallow Daybell and her husband Chad with conspiracy, murder, and other charges in connection to the death of Lori's children, Tylee and JJ, as well as the 2019 death of Chad's first wife, Tammy Daybell. Now, both defendants have pleaded not guilty. They are going to have separate trials. But speaking of Lori Vallow Daybell, it is day 3 of jury selection in her trial. And if convicted, the Doomsday cult mom faces life in prison. Let's go live right now to our very own Gigi McKelvey, who is on the ground for us in Idaho. And Gigi, good morning to you. It's good to see you. As I've always said, and I'll say it every day, since there are no cameras in that courtroom, you are our eyes, you are our ears. Walk us through what the scene is like right now in the morning. What's it like?
There's media coming in for the morning session of jury selection. Not a lot of the public's coming in, although a handful yesterday, maybe 4 or 5 members of the public sat in all day and watched jury selection, which can be a little monotonous. But for right now, it's pretty quiet here at the courthouse. I think that'll pick up once we get to opening statements, which I think could be sooner than later.
Yeah, so you think that this jury selection process might be wrapping up, right? So walk us through how many jurors have actually been selected as of now, and then what the next step of questioning is going to be.
Well, yesterday we saw 3 more groups of 15, or minus a couple. Some people did not show up, and the judge made note of that, by the way. But yesterday they sat, we are up to 30 potential jurors. Now, once we get to 42, this process will stop, and then it gets down into the strikes. And so how that's going to work, each side can strike 12 jurors. And once they do that, we have our 12 sitting jurors and then our 6 alternates, and then it's go time.
Who are these jurors? What questions have they been asked? I mean, do you have any idea about their backgrounds or where they come from?
Varied backgrounds. We have some stay-at-home moms. We have caregivers for family or patients. We've had people in the medical profession, people in the legal profession, and people that actually work for the city of, or Ada County rather. So it's just been varied. There doesn't seem to be any pattern. We've had a mixture of men and women. It seems like the ages maybe are more 30s and above, although yesterday there was a much younger potential juror. But for the most part, it seems like these are adults that have children and families, because one of the questions they ask to jurors who on the questionnaire gave ages of their children, you have a child that's close to the age of one of the victims. Can you look at autopsy photos and still be fair to Lori Vallow? And so far, everybody has said yes, even though some have said it would be difficult.
That's kind of surprising to hear. Have any jurors, so you're saying none of them have come forward and said, listen, I can't, this is too much for me, I need to step aside, I can't be an impartial juror in this case. Has anybody come forward and said they can't be impartial?
Haven't heard one person. I mean, I've checked out of there a couple of times for 5 minutes, but so far I've heard nobody in the jurors we've seen say they can't be fair and impartial to Lori. So it looks like, the right move maybe was bringing it here to Ada County, where you have such a bigger population. And the number of people who don't know much about this case is very surprising, given that it's Idaho and it was such a big case. But a lot of these jurors know small details, but nothing in depth.
And the questions that are being presented by Lori Vallow's side, what are they? I mean, does it give you a sense of where they might be going in their defense?
A couple of, well, for Lori's side, one of the most common questions is, have you seen the Netflix documentary, or have you seen the Netflix trailer? They tend to ask that to most of the potential jurors that go up for questioning. And Jim Archibald says pretty much with every time he gets up that most of his questions were answered by the state and what they asked. So it's been very limited. They've kind of flown through. They're maybe up 5 minutes or less, to where the state takes a lot longer questioning these potential jurors than Lori's side by far. And
what is Lori doing throughout all of this? I mean, we get a sense through the courtroom sketches, which I've been quite critical. I don't think that I don't mean to criticize everybody. They don't look like the best sketches, in my opinion, of what is going on in there. I don't even think that looks like Lori Vallow. But tell me, what is she doing in that courtroom?
Well, what's been most surprising to me, Jesse, is watching how different she is. When we had cameras in the courtroom and could watch the hearings, she would kind of sit around and laugh and joke and not focus on anything really. She's in a different mode now. She has her legal pad. She listens to the jurors. She makes eye contact with them. She's frequently talking between her two attorneys, writing notes. Sometimes she'll write a note, tap her attorney, and have them look at the note. She'll look over at their legal pad. So, you see this whole different side now that it's gotten very real, and the people that are going to decide her fate are in front of her.
That's so interesting. And by the way, my understanding is that you spoke with J.J. Vallow's grandparents prior to day one. This is something that we spoke about. Do we have any idea if you expect for them to attend the opening statements? And also Colby Ryan, who is Lori Vallow Daybell's son. Do we have any sense of who's going to be in that gallery when opening statements begin?
We're still waiting on the ruling from Judge Boyce of whether or not Kay and Larry Woodcock, JJ's grandparents, are defined as victims. Under Idaho law, grandparents and aunts and uncles are not. So that we're hoping that ruling comes down any time now, maybe today. I mean, we're getting close to openings, I think. So we don't know for sure if they're even going to be allowed in that courtroom after they testify. As far as Colby, we know he's on the witness list. He is defined as a victim. Whether or not he attends the whole trial, that's something we've all been wondering ourselves.
By the way, one thing we haven't really talked about is the Tammy Daybell component of this. So Tammy Daybell is the late wife of Chad Daybell, who died under, mysterious circumstances. Her body was exhumed. We still don't know her exact cause of death, right? And the reason I ask that is because Lori has been charged with conspiracy to commit murder in connection with Tammy Daybell's death. Are you getting any sense, or what should we know about the Tammy Daybell component? Because there's one thing about the children. We know their bodies were found on Chad's property, but what about Tammy Daybell?
Well, Tammy's kids gave an interview about a year and a half ago, and one of their sons said that they were told it was asphyxiation. They also said that didn't mean she was suffocated or choked. It just meant she stopped breathing. But that's the only thing we've ever heard publicly about a cause of death for her, and it's not confirmed. I think that, one of the questions that they're asking is, would you be able to convict if a cause of death can't be determined? And so we're not sure if that means Tylee or Tammy, because the remains for Tylee were in such terrible shape. She was burned and dismembered that it makes sense it could be her cause of death that couldn't be determined. But on the other hand, Tammy was buried without an autopsy originally and was embalmed. So were they able to determine a cause of death with her? It remains to be seen, but that's one of the main questions that they're asking, these jurors.
And isn't the questions also being posed to the jurors about that Lori Vallow Daybell might not have been even at the crime scenes? She might not even have been directly involved in the actual killings of these individuals, but if she was somehow a part of it, whether it's the conspiracy angle or whether or not she was in planning it or covering it up, again, there's so much we don't know about this. Are you getting a sense of what Lori Vallow Daybell's role might have been in all of this?
Yeah, and it kind of comes in the form of the second most asked question to these jurors is, can you convict somebody on circumstantial evidence alone? Which tells me they may not have the forensics tying her to the crime scene or even the cell phone pings in the location of where they think the murders may have happened. But it goes back to that conspiracy, and they do ask a question about, if you see a kid with cookie crumbs on their mouth and the cookie jar's open, can you look at that kid and assume that they probably ate that cookie even if you didn't see it? So that's one hypothetical they are posing to pretty much all these jurors. And so I think it's going to be a case where potentially we don't have a cause of death for one of the victims, and it's going to be largely a circumstantial case against Lori.
Now, you mentioned something interesting to me yesterday, that John Pryor, who is Chad Daybell's attorney, was in the courtroom. Was he in the courtroom again yesterday? Because I would imagine that he would be wanting to watch this trial for a number of different reasons, considering his client is going to have an upcoming trial. Did you see him or anybody from Chad's side?
Yeah, Mr. Pryor was here yesterday morning. He didn't stay all day. He did the day before, the first day of jury selection. He was here pretty much the entire time. He checked out before lunch, so maybe an hour or two he was here. And I'm curious to see if he shows back up today, but he has a front row seat for this. He has a bit of an advantage, in my opinion, to see how all this plays out, what they have, and what these witnesses are going to say, because at some point his client will go to trial just like Lori has, and he may have a little leg up on it.
And he's taking
getting to have a front row seat to her trial.
And he's taking notes. Is he talking to any of the reporters about what he's doing there or anything?
Just exchanging pleasantries, nothing too in detail. Not taking notes, just watching and listening, and I haven't seen any note taking, but very focused on what these jurors are saying when they're being asked questions. Gigi McKelvey, thank you so much. Appreciate it. I like doing these hits with you as we get a sense of what the ground is like, what's been happening, and when this trial starts up and we start hearing the arguments and we start hearing the evidence and testimony. Well, I say we're going to hear it. We're not. You're going to tell us what's actually happening in that courtroom. So, Gigi McKelvey, thank you so much. Thanks, Jesse.
All right, we're going to hit a quick break. We're going to continue our coverage here on Law and Crime. I'm going to be signing off, but we have so much for you. Stay with us.